Hey, welcome to my channel, and in this video I'm gonna talk about that how you can write your first machine learning project in Python within 10 minutes and in less than 20 lines of code. Here we are going to implement a support vector machine classifier on iris dataset. We are going to use two libraries of Python, pandas and sklearn. So let's get started. Now here is a series of steps that we are going to follow to write our first machine learning program. So I've divided the process into 5 steps. In step 1 we are going to import required packages, and we'll be using different packages, primarily pandas and sklearn. We'll load machine learning dataset. So today we are going to work with iris dataset, and then we are going to split our dataset in training and testing subsets. In step 4 we are going to apply machine learning classifier. We are going to apply a supervised learning, which is support vector machine. And in step 5 we are going to check the accuracy of our trained model. So let's go with our step 1. What are the packages that we are going to use today? So first of all, let's import pandas library, and we are going to use read_csv sub package. From this we are going to actually use this function to read our dataset. And then from sklearn we are going to use model selection. So this model selection is useful, and it contains a very useful method which will help us in splitting our training and test subsets of our dataset. And then we are going to see the accuracy of our model. So for that we need to import this matrix package, and from there we are going to use accuracy score. And the approach that we are going to use is support vector classifier, which is SVC. For that we need this SVM. So let's start with loading the dataset. The dataset that I am going to use, I have downloaded it from UCI machine learning repository, and this is the data folder. And here you will find iris.data. What I've done, I've just downloaded this file, and then I just need to rename it with .csv so that I can use it in my read_csv function. So in next step I'm just loading my dataset, which is iris.csv, and this is directly going into iris_data variable. Let me show you that what is there in this iris.csv file. So this is iris.csv file, which is having 5 columns, and CSV stands for comma separated values. So first row just contains the names of the columns. So there are 5 columns in this file: sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and class. So this file contains 150 records of 3 types of iris flower. The first row is just representing the names of columns, and the rest of the 150 rows are just the values of 3 different types of flowers, and there are 4 attributes related to every row: sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width. And the 5th one is the name of the class or the type of flower. Here we have loaded our data set, and let's now move to the step number 3, which is to split the data in training and testing subsets. So 80% of this data we are going to use for training, and then we'll be using 20% of the records in this data for testing purpose. The data that we have captured here using reads_csv function is in the form of a panda data frame, and this needs to be converted into an array, and here we are using values property to convert this iris dataset data frame into an array, so that we can extract from here the attributes and the class values. So we are just keeping the values of 4 attributes of different flowers into variable x, and this will contain petal length, sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width. So this is the just a kind of a slicing from the data set that we are using. So first one represents the row, and the second term after this comma represents the columns. So it just simply means that we just want 4 columns. So indexing is starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, and the last index is excluded. So it will just take the 0, 1, 2 and 3 columns from the data set. Will ignore the 4th one, and in the next step we are reading a value in y. So these are just the labels, because we are just mentioning here value 4. So 4 is just representing the 5th value of the columns, which represents the class. Now let's split our data into training and testing subsets. So here we are dividing our x and y. So x is just representing the attributes, and y is just representing the class levels of 3 categories of iris flower. And here the test size that we are going to use is 20% of the entire data. So out of 150 rows in the data, we'll be using 120 rows for training, and rest of the 30 rows will be used for testing the accuracy of the train. Let's move to step 4, where we are going to create an instance of our support vector machine classifier. So we have SVC, a support vector classifier, in our sklearn package, and we are just creating a model using SVC. So model is just a variable, and SVC is a function. Here you can see that those we do not use here semicolons. It is the part of syntax of Python. And now in this step we are performing the training. So we are performing here the training using support vector machine, and this is a supervised learning algorithm where we provide some examples, and then we try to predict on some unseen data. So model.fit, so this fit function is basically being used here for performing training on classifier SVC. It will run from the examples that what are the attributes and what are the corresponding classes. Till this step we have completed our training. Now let's see that how much accurate our trained classifier is. So for checking the accuracy of our classifier, we are just predicting the classes on some unseen data. So we use x_ts for our test data set, and we just predicted the classes of our test data set. So they are coming just predict flower class, and we are just printing the accuracy of our trained model. We are just checking that what classes we get as a result of this function. and what are the actual classes. So those actual classes are already stored in y_ts, and once we check the accuracy and run the entire piece of code, so this is the entire code, and then we are just going to run it, and what we are getting that here accuracy is 0.96. it means that it is the accuracy of the model is 96.6%. So thank you. This was the toy example of using pandas and sklearn to write your first classifier using support vector machine, and I'll be pasting this piece of code in the description so that you can use it. Thank you for watching. Happy learning.